Hey, what's going on, guys? Rum Gaming here, back another video. Today's episode, we're gonna be taking a look at the Flurry Rogue. Flurry Rogue is gonna have pretty good mobility, pretty good area damage, and we'll be using Flurry as our primary damage skill. The thing about this is really cool is the new Death Mask, which we'll talk about here shortly, allows us to spend life instead of energy, and then by putting points into our siphoning strikes, we're able to sustain ourselves. So here is a quick look. If you want to go down to the description of the video, press the link. It will take you right out to this page, and you can just kind of follow along with this specific build guide. This is what we'll be using in the video, just to kind of address all of our talking points. And then you can save this link wherever you want, in your bookmarks, whatever. Anytime that you need to refer to your guide, you just press the bookmark, and here's everything that you need to know. One thing to note is I did not build out the Paragon tree. It is in the notes section here. On Icy Veins, there's already a good one built out on Icy Veins, so no reason for me to spend 20 minutes building out a Paragon board. So click that link, it'll take you right to it. Let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to talk about is our Hoadric Spellcraft. So this is new in Season 9. So we'll be taking Corrosive Vapor in our Infusion. And the real reason that we take this is not for the damage or anything. It's at the very bottom here. It deactivates a monster vampiric effects for 8 seconds. So this prevents healing and allows mobs to die a little bit quicker by negating that vampiric effect. Right below that, we're running Bloody Charm. We're seeing this in a ton of builds right now. This is going to allow you to execute non-elite enemies. So it's going to help speed up your clear. We also are taking Fractured Core for a very similar reason that we're taking Corrosive Vapor. There's a lot of mobs in the game that will have something called a damage resistance aura. You'll see it in pits all the time. And this is just going to remove that damage resistance aura and going to help you clear it a little bit faster, more efficiently. And then once again, same thing with Potent Alloy here. We're taking this to remove the barrier effects from the mobs. So most of your Hoadric spellcrafts are being taken to remove effects that mobs place on themselves, like buffs. And that's what you kind of see in most builds is something similar to what we're running here. Now for your catalyst itself, you're going to be taking Disintegrate. This is going to shoot out a beam that kind of persists. And you can kind of move this beam around and run mobs into it, and it does a significant amount of damage, and it will also slow them by 50%, so you can kite a little bit more efficiently. So all around, really strong right now, Disintegrate. Up next, I'm going to talk about our Hoadric Jewels, which is something else that's new in Season 9. So Hoadric Jewels are really nice because they're going to allow us to beef up our armor and our resistances and some of those little pesky things that are a little bit difficult to round out in a season. So you see at the very bottom here in our socket, we're getting 120 armor and 6% resist to all elements from this Hoadric Jewel. Then we also have an effect with this specific jewel as well. And I'll bring it up here so it's a little bit easier to see. The Revere Horn, after you injure or kill an enemy, your summons are empowered, growing larger and dealing 50% more damage for 4 seconds. So the reason that we're running this is because we are running Shadow Clone as our ultimate, and it's going to give us a large buff to our Shadow Clone. We'll see kind of how that works here, a little bit more here in a minute. We're also running Willbreaker here. So again, you get the armor, you get the resist all. And this is going to give us a damage multiplier for physical builds, which Flurry is a physical build, so very strong for us. So long story short, they take more physical damage. And then the final one that we'll be running is the Idol from Below. And this is pretty self-explanatory why you run it. 6% primary core stat, 6% max life and unhindered. And then it also spawns elites, which is really nice because you get experience from those elites. And then you also get pit progression from those elites as well. So I'm not sure if they meant for this to be a bad thing or not, those Jewel Guardians that spawn, but they actually help you in your pit progression. Okay, moving on a little bit further, let's go ahead and talk about our talent tree. So we're going to put 1 point into Blade Shift and then 1 point into Enhanced Blade Shift. You won't be using this, but we do need the points to get into the next part of our tree, which is where Flurry exists. So Flurry is going to be your core skill, and we're actually running a specific aspect that will enhance this. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And one thing that's really nice about this is if you go down to Enhance Flurry, casting Flurry is a 40% chance for it to apply Vulnerable. So you actually apply Vulnerable through one of your core spells, which is kind of rare. A lot of core spells do not apply Vulnerable. A lot of times it's very difficult to apply Vulnerable in a lot of builds. So this build specifically has Vulnerable built in, which is very nice. Then we'll be taking Advanced Flurry before that. Excuse me, after that, just going to give this sort of a stacking bonus damage effect. It stacks up to 3 times. Be putting 3 points into Sturdy for a little bit close damage reduction. Very good for a physical damage build like this. We'll be taking Shadow Step as well. Really, we take Shadow Step mainly just for Unstoppable. You can use it for mobility if you want, but be very careful because there are going to be those sticky situations where you need to proc that Unstoppable to break out of a stun effect. And then we take points into Enhanced Shadow Step and then 1 point into Disciplined Shadow Step for a little bit more CDR on it. Up next, we're running Caltrops, and we get a lot of bonus modifiers and effects from enemies standing in our Caltrops. A lot of the times you'll see it like in our Paragon board. It's just a huge damage amp for elites and for bosses to run Caltrops, so that's why we use it. And then you can also get a lot of other different effects depending on like if you're running like chill effects. So for example, we are running methodical Caltrops here. That's going to add the chill effect, which is extremely nice because it's going to slow mobs for us. And then enhanced Caltrops here, any mobs that are standing within your Caltrops are going to take increased damage from you. So overall, just a huge damage amp to take Caltrops. Again, these count as a trap. Moving down, we also have Dash. So Dash is going to be your main mobility ability. And, you can use it just to kind of traverse the map, to get through pits faster, to dodge boss mechanics and abilities. So a staple in a lot of rogue builds. And you can see we're taking methodical Dash here. Dash has 1 additional charge, and its charge cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. So you can stay topped off of charges pretty easily with that. We're also running a Dark Shroud. So we don't actually have Dark Shroud on our skill bar. The way that you proc your Dark Shroud is through an aspect called Enshrouding Aspect, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But Dark Shroud does 2 things for us. It does 3 things for us. It gives us movement speed, it reduces damage taken, and then through our tempers, which we'll take a look at again here in a second, we do more damage for each Dark Shroud charge that we have up. So very key to max this out. 5 points in Dark Shroud, putting points into Enhanced Dark Shroud for more movement speed, and then points into Countering Dark Shroud for more critical strike chance. We'll also be running a Smoke Grenade. So this is going to inflict something called Daze on enemies. And it's also going to give us a pretty good damage modifier as well. You can see that we're taking Enhanced Smoke Grenades. So this is good to use on bosses for the damage amp. And then if you're not sure what the Daze effect is, essentially it just keeps mobs from attacking you. They can still walk around and move and whatnot, but they just can't attack you. So great for survivability and damage. And then finally, we're taking Subverting Smoke Grenade. And this will deal poison damage. And the reason that this is pretty strong for us is because if we go down here to Alchemical Advantage, which we're going to talk about next anyways, dealing poison damage increases your attack speed and lucky hit chance by 3% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 15%. So dealing poison damage is going to get this stacking effect for us that allows us to do a whole bunch more damage, essentially. So if we take a look here at Alchemical Advantage, right, we get that lucky hit chance. So what lucky hit are we going for? So if we go down to Innervation, our lucky hit is up to a 30% chance to gain 8 energy. So the more that we are lucky hitting, the more energy that we will be restoring. So moving up a little bit more, right, we're also taking Frigid Finesse. You deal 25% increased damage to chilled enemies, right? And the reason we take that is due to our Caltrops here, which will apply the chill effect for us. Moving down a little bit further, we're also taking as our ultimate Shadow Clone. And this is kind of where the fun of this build comes in. And that's the reason that we actually run Preparation. So while Shadow Clone is up, this clone's going to mimic our spells and essentially double our damage output. This is also going to give us Stealth and Unstoppable. And then we're also going to put a point into Supreme Shadow Clone, giving us 20% damage reduction. Now, where this becomes useful is when you come into Preparation here. So this is where we get high uptime on our ultimate, is through Preparation. So spend 75 energy to reduce your ultimate skill's cooldown by 5 seconds. Ultimate skills reset other cooldowns and grant 15% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So as we use ultimates, it's resetting the cooldown on all of our spells here. And then as we spend energy on these spells, it is resetting the cooldown on our Shadow Clone, on our ultimate. That's why we see a lot of builds that run Preparation, because you can get very high uptime on your ultimate ability, our case Shadow Clone. So kind of go back into our tree here really quick. Putting 3 points into Second Wind. More energy we spend, more max life we get. We're putting 3 points into Unto Dawn. More ultimate skill damage. And then our final point here is going to go into Momentum. Right, and this is going to pair very well. Obviously, with our Flurry, casting and channeling a Cutthroat skill grants a stack of momentum. Casting a Marksman skill removes a stack of momentum. So everything that we run is going to be Cutthroat, and we're not running anything Marksman, so you'll never lose the stacks. Okay, let's quickly take a look at some of the gear. So this is a new mask that's been added to the game, and this is kind of what makes this build so strong right now. And this was the converting your life into energy thing that we talked about at the start of the guide. So look at the passive effect. You can now overexert yourself while casting Flurry, spending 8% life when you don't have enough energy. Spending life to cast Flurry increases its damage by 100% and your auto attack speed by 50% for 5 seconds. So if you run out of energy, you now drain your own life. So the way to get this, to power farm it, is to get obviously the layer boss keys from Beast in the Ice, opening that Hoadric chest at the end. Up next, we'll be running, I guess we'll just do the uniques first. Up next, we'll do Grasp of Shadow. So casting a marksman or cutthroat skill has a 50% chance to summon a shadow clone that mimics that skill. So really strong, right? We basically get duplicated effects of our flurries, duplicated effects of our shadow clone. Pretty much anything, right, that's tagged with cutthroat, we can duplicate it. Then the final unique we'll be running is Penitent Greaves here, which is just going to be another way that we can apply that chill effect, which we talked about in the talent section, how chill effect is so strong for us. Okay, now let's quickly talk about runes. So we're putting 2 runes here in our chest. So first one we'll be running is Sir. Cast 5 skills, then become exhausted for 3 seconds, and we'll gain 300 offering, and we'll be spending that on Cry here. So invoke the Spiritborn's Vortex skill, dealing damage and pulling enemies in. That's going to group mobs into our flurry so that we can just kind of nuke them down. You see stuff like this on a ton of builds right now. It's all about grouping the mobs, more efficiency. In our weapons, we are running Ahu and Quack. So Ahu, I never know if I'm pronouncing these correctly, but Ahu here, gain 15 offering, lucky hit, up to 100% chance against non-healthy enemies. So just attack things, get offering, and we're going to spend that on our Quacks here. Casting skill other than a basic defensive skill consumes your primary resource, increases your damage up to 100% for 1 second. So just again, a huge burst of damage. Great for elites, great for bosses. For your gems, everywhere else, you'll be running a Grand Emerald. And of course, putting that Grand Emerald in your weapons for critical strike damage. Okay, let's talk about our aspects now. So let's go back to our chest. So in our chest, we'll be running Enshrouding Aspect. We talked about this earlier. The reason we run this is to keep that Dark Shroud up. Dark Shroud's can give us a huge damage amp, and it's also going to give us damage reduction. Now, we talked about tempers on this as well. So if we look right here, you can see it's on our neck. The tempers that you're going to go for whenever you can is going to be Dark Shroud Shadow. Excuse me, damage per Dark Shroud Shadow. So you kind of see that 30% right there. That's what that temper is. You're going to be putting that temper on your neck. It's going to be on both of your rings, and then also on all of your weapons. So it's going to be on both of your daggers, and it's also going to be on your bow. So extremely important temper. Up next, we're going to talk about, let's see, we talked about, yeah, let's go into our legs now. So our runic leggings here, our tempers, we're going Flurry, Size, and Siphoning Strikes. And then we're also going Umbrous Aspect on them. So critical strikes have up to a 45-65% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud Shadow. So this is going to be the other way that we keep our Dark Shroud up. Actually, this is probably the more important of the two. The other one's based off a healing potion. This one's based off your critical strikes. You're going to be critical striking a lot in this build. So it's literally permanent uptime on your Dark Shroud. So that's that aspect. On our weapon here, we're going to be running Aspect of Encircling Blades. This kind of goes into our Flurry, and it just makes our Flurry work in like a circle effect around you. This is going to make it much easier to hit mobs with your Flurry. It's also going to increase its damage. So that's a win-win. Our next aspect is going to be on our neck here. That is going to be Breakneck Bandit's Aspect. Flurry does increase damage, has a 20% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. So very straightforward, more damage on Flurry. On our first ring here, we're going to be running Vehement Brawler's Aspect. Casting an ultimate skill increases your damage by 10 to 30% for 8 seconds. Gain 2 additional ultimate skill ranks. So this is very nice to have because we have pretty much permanent uptime on our ultimate with this build, again, due to preparation. So you can pretty much always keep this damage increase up, this damage amp up. And then the additional ranks to our ultimate skill is just insane on this. So make sure you're picking up Vehement Brawler's Aspect. And then on our final ring here, we are running Aspect of Inner Calm. Works pretty well for the Flurry build, right? Because you're in melee, you're kind of standing in one position, you're not kiting back or anything. So going to give us a nice little damage amp. On our first dagger, we'll be running Aspect of Stolen Vigor. While at max stacks of our momentum key passive, your cutthroat skills deal increased damage, and you become unstoppable for 3 seconds. So very nice because we're not running, if you guys remember from earlier, we are running the momentum key passive, right? And we're not running any marksman skills that remove stacks, so you'll be able to stay at max stacks very easily in this build. So that's going to synergize pretty well with Stolen Vigor here. So more damage on our Flurry, and we get the unstoppable effect. And then on our second dagger here, we'll be running Conceited Aspect. Deal increased damage whenever we have a barrier active. So that's a big question too, is how the heck do we get barrier? Well, if you remember from earlier, that's going to be actually coming from our innervation here. From that lucky hit up to a 30% chance. Oh, excuse me, from second wind here. Every 100 energy you spend grants 45% of your max life as a barrier for 3 seconds. So that aspect makes sense in this build. For your mercenaries, you'll be running right here with Variana. you'll be running Valiant, and you'll be going down the right-hand side of the tree with Ground Slam into Bastion. And then on your reinforcement, you'll also be going Bloodthirst with your Flurry. So great for movement, and of course, another way to proc our Unstoppable. Again, for the Paragon board, if you do want to check out, there's a ton of different Paragon boards online. You can find, whichever one you want. This is one that I found from Icy Veins. Use what you want. That's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one.